fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Rose-Morris, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Not guilty. Do you feel bad for Rosenbaum? Not really. The mob threatened Kyle's life, he got busy. It wasn't self-defense, man, y'all silly. Y'all just wanna burn the city, but it's not guilty. Shouldn't pop off, mess around and get knocked off. Man, y'all just should've walked off. We are not soft with the side off. We got big sticks, y'all are nitwits. Bring a 380, you will get lit. I'm a Christian with logistics, y'all are misfits with the lipstick, man. Okay, now I just came to paint the picture. Your brains are on the pavement cause you ain't the victor. What is this about? You should've been quicker. You gon' listen now? Too late. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Bring the muscle pull up at a politician house. Come and take it the two-way and make you listen now. And y'all just trying to send us to the prison house. This a mission. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Bring the muscle pull up at a politician house. Come and take it the two-way and make you listen now. And y'all just trying to send us to the prison house. This a mission. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Listen, we don't wanna do it. You forcing us to move and you forcing us to use it. You forcing us to organize and that is how I view it. Trust me, you are gonna be mortified if we decide to lose it. Okay, got the camo with the ammo, call me Rambo, this gang. Got the red dot for the headshot, better get off my lane. And y'all don't want the smoke and y'all don't really want the pain. And y'all ain't nothing but a joke, it's nothing you could really gain. Okay, don't step foot up on my land. If you don't know, I'm about to tell you there's a line up in the sand. So what is this about? And please don't force my hand, you gon' listen now? Too late. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Bring the muscle pull up at a politician house. Come and take it the two-way and make you listen now. And y'all just trying to send us to the prison house. This a mission. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Bring the muscle pull up at a politician house. Come and take it the two-way and make you listen now. And y'all just trying to send us to the prison house. This a mission. Y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse.
Gang, apparently we have made Ana Kasparian pull a Rittenhouse. Literally, I started with that song because there's been a lot of talk lately about right-wing rappers. And to be honest, that Tyson James is, to me, hands down, the best right-wing rapper. Like that Rittenhouse song going, y'all about to make me pull a Rittenhouse. Grab a muzzle pull up at a politician house. That shit goes hard. It's batshit crazy. It's absolute insanity. It's every single word of it is fucking wrong. But apparently it is Ana Kasparian's favorite new jam because in addition to throwing the LGBT community under the bus, she has literally reimagined the last 5 or so years of fucking political discourse. Yes, up to and including Kyle Fuckface Rittenhouse, y'all. No games. Like I'm not even joking, y'all. The woman has just, like I said, the left has left the building. All right, gang. Before we jump into it, let's go ahead and get to the musical portion of our show. Oh shit! Oh shit! We got the lovely Bree in the house.
Hello.
Oh shit! All right, but look, we got a couple of songs to get to, Bree. So we gonna do the musical thing.
Just to comment on that song and what you were just saying about it. I know what it's like to have a shitty song stuck in your head. I was just complaining about the Colleen Ballinger song going through my head constantly.
Oh no!
It's the most awful thing in the world, but it's a fucking banger. I don't care. That chorus is. Toxic gossip train.
Oh yeah, that toxic gossip train. Yeah, that shit have me. Yeah, see the right wingers, man. They know how to make a hook, right? That's the one thing they get right. Oh man. All right, y'all. Speaking of catchy songs, man, you're gonna love this one. This one is gonna take y'all back to good old times.
In this life, only one
airplane mode, y'all.
You gone through all the pain and strife. Turn your back and they're gone so fast.
Also, there's gonna be some new OG Roddy music this month, and we gonna have him on the show. So we're looking forward to that.
So fast. Yeah.
Gang, we got one more for you. This one is also gonna bring you back, but it's a new one for the stream, so I'm excited about it. Let's do this one. I know y'all are gonna remember this song too. Hey, Carrie Ann.
I used to rule the world. Seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to roam.
Cheers, gang. I don't know what happened to the chat over there.
But now the old king is dead. Long live the king. 1 minute I held the key.
Oh, it's fine on stream. It's just fucked up behind stage.
And I discovered my castle stand upon the pillars of salt and pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, rolling a cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain. Once you go, there was never an
gang.
Roman Cavalry choirs are singing, "Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in foreign field."
All right, gang, make sure you're subscribed to Breathe.
I know St. Peter won't call my
Thank
name,
you.
never an honest word.
Of course, of course.
I rule the
There's that steel guitar. Yeah.
So nice, right? Underappreciated instrument. Love you too, Leah. All right, that was fantabulous. All right, gang, let's go ahead and jump into the main event of the evening. And what an unfortunate one it is. For me, this whole thing started back when Ana Kasparian made a tweet about not being referred to as a birthing person. And giving her the benefit of the doubt, I was kind of like, all right, this is a bit weird, but that would be a weird thing, so I'm not sure what's going on. And of course, my wonderful trans friends, they were like, this is exactly what's going on. No one is ever referring to Ana Kasparian as a birthing person. I was like, yeah, that's weird, because that's like one. I was like,
not
never
a
even
term
hear that
for-
word.
Not a term for common parlance. It's used for legislation and medical filing. It's not.
Yeah, that's it.
Chart notes.
That's it. And so it was weird because she pretty much got the same public education on that issue we all got. Everybody was like, listen, Ana, let's just set you a bit straight on this. And so I naively was sure that any day now, the Young Turks are going to issue like an apology and a statement, and Anna's going to admit that that was, a misstep and hurtful and feeds in the right-wing narrative. And that day never came. Matter of fact, I just found out today in preparation for this show that she doubled down on it in a segment that I apparently hasn't come to my attention. And yeah, now we have a situation where basically Jank threw the the left wing under the bus by saying that the left is responsible for conservatives and Republicans and GOP legislation because we won't compromise on the trans and sports issue, and because we won't compromise on that, we're to blame for the increase in anti-trans legislation. So we covered that on the video The Left Has Left the Left. And since then, people have been kind of taking the gloves off, and the mask has been coming off. And so Ana actually went on a show called what is this show called?
Sitch and Adam.
Sitch and Adam, and she was on here for literally 2 hours and 40 minutes, gang. And really laid out her new character arc for us. And let's just say it's so much worse. It's just so much worse. Like there's just I don't think there can be any doubt about this anymore. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at the first part of it. Like I said, it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we're not going to be able to watch all of it. We're going to get through the first part because there's some shit that's really grinding my gears. And then if you want to watch the rest of it, we're going to probably do that and gather. So we'll do that and gather. We'll have a bigger off-air conversation about all of this stuff. But obviously, as the gross, hideous man on the screen, I've been talking too long, and I should have turned things over to the lovely Bree ages ago. But I did want to explain to people why we're here today, and Bree's been fortunate enough to join us. So, but Bree, just take us briefly through, or take as much time as you want, actually, but just take us through your sort of perception of the Ana Kasparian turn and what that's meant to you.
Very similar to your own. I haven't actually even been following them very long. I started following them the last election cycle, the Young Turks, because I was like, I wanted to have something to listen to that was that kept me up to date while I was working. So I started listening to the Young Turks while I was and they've always that's the problem too. It's like what Dylan Mulvaney said about Budweiser. I kind of feel that way about the Young Turks. I feel like they had a trans person on their staff. They supported us. They made the gesture that they were going to publicly support us as part of the community, and then now it's like, you know what? No, we think that supporting you is a step too far. It doesn't. What was the term she used? It's from in the tweet that she deleted. It's not polling well. That the sports issue doesn't poll well for the trans community.
Yes.
So we need to drop that. Just what oppression we are willing to accept. We need to accept a little bit of oppression so that we can poll better as a community. What do you think of that? Does that sound?
It's actually horrifying. It's a clear abandonment of principles. Also, like how would any marginalized group make progress if it was dependent on the dominant opinion, right? Like, we know this in dealing with counter apologetics. It's an argument ad populum. This isn't about, if this type of bigotry wasn't commonplace, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's disgusting, but that's essentially what I feel is their case, right? That this is a losing strategy and we ought to compromise. And what's really kind of bothers me is I don't know how much they
Did you see her appeal to the civil rights movement on this?
No.
Then the civil rights movement was nonviolent. The civil rights movement was peaceful, all peaceful protests, and it was pretty outlandish. She deleted it. It was such a bad take, but that was her comparison. I'm glad they didn't have her opinion during the civil rights movement, right?
Right.
If black people voting polls bad, well, we're not going to let them vote. Who's voting on that, right? I mean, it's circular. It implodes upon itself. That argument is the dumbest. Sorry, it is the most ignorant, I guess.
It is.
It's uninformed.
Absolutely.
The sad thing about Ana Kasparian, though, is that I've seen her make the arguments that we're making right now. So she's not unaware of the
exactly.
That's the worst part.
Yes, and you're bringing up some layers here because there's a history she has of this, right? So she's gotten enough feedback in the past to have deleted tweets. So you already know what time it is. You've already been corrected. And you should know to either stay away from this issue or be very careful with it. So there is no playing stupid. Also, she's like, as you said, she's so in such a badass way kind of laid out these takes. She kind of would, Anna, she does these hot takes where she goes on about something. And since it's typically a progressive voice and there's not a lot of, progressive platforms with that kind of reach, everybody's like sharing it and it kind of goes viral. And everybody's like, yo, that Anna, like her take on religion, where she's like, I don't care about your religion and all that. Like, everybody loves that. Like,
I was playing that on my channel just weeks ago,
Yeah.
Before all this hit the fan, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been super disappointed by this. It hurts. I don't know. Here's a couple things that have bothered me about it. So one, I don't know if we have comparable sized platforms. I don't know if David Pakman is as big as the Young Turks, but I have a hard time thinking of other voices we don't have but so many voices that are in the millions of followers or subscribers or whatever. So that's a huge problem. I'm also now suspicious of all of them. The way I think of it is like Joe Biden made a huge mistake when he says that he didn't have any hard test questions for judicial nominees, right? That's bullshit. The Republicans do. And not only am I at the point where you should have hard questions for judicial nominees, I'm at the point that this needs to be one of them. How do you feel about trans participation in sports? That needs to absolutely be a day one interview question, because we're not even keeping you in the maybe pile if you don't answer this question correctly. And that's now how I'm seeing so-called progressive and leftist content creators or commentators or whoever. I don't trust nobody now till I know exactly how they stand on trans in sports, because I'm literally afraid every single time I click on somebody's video that they're gonna do this. They're gonna take this turf sports take just out of nowhere. And I'm realizing this is what our trans, and I'm saying because this is what our trans family member really deal with. People want to talk about cancel culture and all this bullshit. No, it is waking up every day not knowing who might completely betray you today. And what else are you supposed to fucking do but just stop watching? I mean, it's crazy.
And if you want to boycott the Young Turks, you're boycotting. Just to let you guys know, the breakdown, Rebel HQ. That's all the Young Turks too. That's all the same, under the same producers, which is Anna and Jank. So
yeah, and that's another thing is a lot of us really appreciated sort of the diversity of perspectives and creators and people that they put on that platform, but this is the tension, because I think, at least for me, that was part of I was like, I don't want to punish all of these other content creators in this entire organization that I really, really like. And I don't want to just punish our cause in general by, not watching anybody under the TYT banner, because a lot of these people are still doing great work and they haven't said the things that she said, and they probably would never do that. But there gets to a point where you have to say, well, now I can't support the organization because this is your leadership. This is your owner. This is your flagship show. This is your executive producer, and Anna. So Jank I think is the boss. Anna's also an executive producer. They're both on the flagship show. This pattern is too deep. I just can't support the organization anymore. It's just it's the same ask I have of Christians. When you realize your organization is bigoted and discriminating against a particular group, you just dip on out of there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, and Benny wasn't the first person to leave because of,
I didn't realize that.
these things. Yeah. Mike from what was it? Is it the Humanist Report? Is that
Humanist
what
Report? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
He left due to these differing positions on these topics that he had with the higher producers, which is just like you said, Anna and Jenks. So, and then there was somebody else, but I can't remember what their name was right off the top of my head. But somebody did a video compilation of Benny and then somebody else, and then they're all talking about their issues with the production, where in the direction that TYT was headed. So yeah,
this is crazy. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the footage, and we'll add our commentary. Bree, if you want to say something, just let us know. And all right. Harmonicas,
it's your boy PSA Sitch here.
ukuleles.
Sunday show with everyone's favorite Supreme Court enthusiast, Adam.
Gifted.
Oh yeah. I've been reading up on the Supreme Court, Sitch. I'm learning so much about how our country functions. It's amazing. And we have, a special guest with us here today, Ana Kasparian, co-host of the Young Turks. Do you want to introduce yourself? I mean, I feel like our audience definitely knows who you are, but you're probably doing other things as well.
At the moment, I'm not. I'm mostly focusing on TYT. But yeah, I'm the executive producer and co-host of the Young Turks.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that alcohol?
Since 2007. And
Nice.
I've done other things on the side at various points of my career. But for now, that's the main focus.
Okay, so we're very excited to have this conversation. We started talking a little bit before the show, and you seem open to talking about a lot of things. You seem to be going through kind of a political transformation, evolution. I don't really know the right word to call it, but I'll let you talk about that. But first of all, people want to know, because you did mention in our little chat in DMs that I was wrong about the Daily Wire thing. Now, I make predictions.
All right, I'm gonna let this roll, but just quickly, notice how he has set the stage off the rip, right? Like he comes straight out and said explicitly, "You're changing. You're going through a political evolution. You're not thinking the same way you used to." So there's no way that she doesn't know everything that's about to come out of her mouth is going to be evaluated in terms of her pulling this 180 on us and giving us that hard lean to the right. She's pulling, the Pine Creek. I lean right, to the right of Tucker Carlson. Now look, of course, Anna's not literally to the right of Tucker Carlson, but nevertheless, I'm just drawing your attention, hopefully, to how explicit this is, right, y'all? This is no longer just a bad take, right? This is her going on some centrist wild show channel to talk about her change in perspective. So let's not sleep on this.
On the show all the time, and I have never been wrong before. So people, I've been making jokes about you might end up at the Daily Wire. That's not true.
On the menu today. Never thought we'd do the show ever.
So it's funny because, I'm going through something very real and very sincere, and it's uncomfortable, and it has not been an enjoyable process for me. It's been difficult. And so the internet being what it is, all sorts of people from all sorts of political ideologies have theories on what's actually happening with me, right? And the main accusation, both from the left and the right, is that I'm grifting, which is hilarious because literally nothing has changed about my work life. I'm in the same place.
Yeah, YouTube Punk, we were talking about the deleted tweets.
The audience doesn't like some of what I have to say or some of the new conclusions I've come to.
Yeah, we were talking about the deleted tweets.
I wanted to kind of set the record straight about what I have
establishing more history of this.
I don't know what my political labels are at this point, right? Because I feel like I don't really fit anywhere.
Deleted tweets.
Gang, can you imagine listening to the Young Turks and then being like, I don't know how to label myself politically. I don't know how I identify anymore. What? These are the people who tell us this is the home of the progressive cause. We are the leading liberal voice in America. What? I'm not sure. I don't know what team I'm on. I don't know what color to wear in the morning.
That's just full honesty. It's, again, very
full
uncomfortable
honesty.
for me.
Got it.
And I want to say that out of any point in my adult life, this is probably the point where I'm the most malleable and open to new information because of what I've experienced over the last few years. And I can get into details about that in just a moment. But that was the reason why I told Adam that, no, this isn't like a Daily Wire thing. I have no interest in working at the Daily Wire. I have no interest in leaving TYT. If anything, I just feel a responsibility to kind of correct what I got wrong in the past to the best of my ability and just do better moving forward. And the reason why I've been at TYT as long as I have is, despite what any of you might think about Cenk, he has never once tried to censor me or tell me what I can and can't say. That's the reason why, we get into these fiery debates and there's never any like retaliation for it. And as long as I'm free to speak my mind and genuinely speak my mind the way I have been, I plan on staying there. And there's absolutely no monetary or financial incentive for me to do anything I'm doing right now.
Well, Sitch and I box a lot on this show. And I think people, I think they like that. I think they admire that we are able to fight with one another over a policy position and still walk away friends. So
exactly.
I spent the last week, I was watching a bunch of your most recent videos. And I mean,
Bree, we heard you. Could you just say that again?
So we're not a policy position. We're people.
But wait, there's people who believe in the magic of Martin Luther King's rule of three. So can you say it again, Bree? Oh my goodness, gang!
I don't think they'll ever.
Trans people are not a policy position. There is no policy position. And also, can I just say everybody plays sports because sports are games? That's all that needs to be said about that issue.
It's not political. I'm not political. Just sitting here, I'm political. Me being on your channel is making a political statement. Isn't that bizarre?
Yes, it makes you political. It makes me a trans rights activist.
Yeah, just me sitting next to you. Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
We're snapping back at Cenk quite often.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a sexy job description.
It's actually quite refreshing. There's a couple things, and we have questions on these. But I'll let Sitch. I don't know. Do you have anything that you want to ask before we get started?
So, it turns out that Anna is a massive fan of our program. She's seen every episode, just huge fan, right?
Well, okay, so I happened to come across a video you guys did about me. It was the stream on, I hate to name names, but you guys were covering the leftist mafia and their insane gaslighting video about me. And you guys were the only ones, as far as I could see, that actually did a good job in highlighting how badly they were gaslighting me. Right. And so I thank you for doing that, Crystal. Because, when everyone around you, everyone who alleges to be your friends,
and I think games is a pretty low bar,
isn't true, but they keep repeating it to you over and over again. You start asking yourself, like, am I the crazy one?
Yes, you are the crazy one.
I really appreciated that. But, you guys have put out a ton of videos about me that have not been friendly or nice. And it's okay. I mean,
she's talking
I can be
about
a good sport about it. And I do think that you guys raised a few.
She's talking about the leftist mafia stream, which is, Mike how you say his last name? Figueroa or whatever, the Humanist Report guy.
Yes.
The guy from the Surfs, and then Olay was on there. There's like 6 of them. I can't remember who all.
Yeah. I don't know their names, but yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
6 of her peers, people who that she's worked with or adjacent to for years,
absolutely,
all have an opinion, and hers is different. And so what she infers from that is that all these 6 other people are all gaslighting her. That she has one opinion and these 6 other people have another, and they say, you've changed your opinion. They're gaslighting her about her history. That's so bizarre to me. You think that at that point, you'd think if you were feeling differently about that you'd want to do some introspection and not some projection.
Yes, and that is a big part of it. It's the same problem I have with so many apologists. It's like you've been sat down, this has been explained to you, people have kindly tried to educate you on this. This isn't an issue where you've just been mistreated. Like you've heard from the best people. Like, and if you look at the thread, even in her tweets, there's experts and scientists and doctors and trans people and your own friends and producers and other content creators. So this is a strategic decision to me, and they've already decided to double down on this, and that this is the direction you're going. And I was hopeful that maybe Jank would speak up, and Jank's perspective would be, Anna
having
has
a
her own
opposing view on the show.
Yeah. Anna has her own opinion and but instead it almost feels like this is something they cooked up in production meetings. Like they've just, because they're in lockstep on this. Maybe not. Maybe this is just genuinely where they both are. I don't know which one is worse.
The tweet, the birthing person tweet, that was like unprovoked out of nowhere. It's like, where did that even come from? And she talks about other stuff too. She mentions things like on the level of Joe Rogan saying, he heard from a friend of a friend that they had cat boxes in the classrooms, that kind of thing, for the kids who identify. She spreads disinformation in this stream just like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen clips of it. So I don't know where it comes in at, but she does. It's like a 2.5 hour conversation.
Yeah, this thing is so long. All right.
Yeah.
Valid points, and I just need to be willing to accept where I was wrong.
Also, Bree, if I freeze, it's just my computer. I'll be back, and you can just talk. The floor is yours if I vanish.
Where people are critiquing from good faith. Like, you guys have a little bit of an edgy style, so I'll acknowledge that. But I have thick skin, so it didn't really bother me that much.
That's commendable. We're on this kind of like internet environment where everyone's very attacky to each other.
Totally.
Especially when they're not like engaging with them in person. So
yeah,
you have to have kind of a thick skin. And I know, but I mean, you're talking about earlier, and one of the things that we always commended you on was, when you publicly came out and you said that you were wrong about the Rittenhouse video, which, I mean, most people, when they make a mistake, they just try to hide it or they try to shift blame. Jimmy Dore very, famously.
Gang, I just want to say I told you. I know a lot of y'all thought I was exaggerating and bullshit. Nope. She's literally about to reimagine Kyle Fuckface Rittenhouse. That's why I had to pull out my song.
Blamed his producer. And I thought it was really commendable that you came out and you're like, no, I got this wrong. And you were trying to show, not just do this for your sake, but to say, like, listen, audience, you need to understand that this is the story. And I don't want you guys to have the wrong information.
Yeah, there was, the one, I guess, through line you'll notice in the various things that we're going to talk about in this conversation is that it just became abundantly clear to me that where I was getting my information, and I'm not just talking about independent lefty outlets. I'm talking about legacy media outlets, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of them, it's not that they report misinformation, it's that they omit details of the story that would, maybe the additional details of the story don't change your mind at all, right? But it's not up to them to decide that. We should know every detail. I think the Amy Cooper story is another example. It was fairly recently I came across Camille Foster's very in-depth investigation into that story, and there were so many details of that story that were intentionally omitted or left out of the legacy media reporting of it.
That I believe that is the story with the bird watcher.
Yes, gang. If y'all don't, this is what I mean. This is crazy. So the question of the day is, which Ana Kasparian narrative do you find the most problematic? Because see, you might have thought when we started off the day
it was going to be
that it was just going to be, maybe it's her bad take on birthing person, or maybe it's her trans and sports issue, right? But now you've got fucking Kyle Rittenhouse on the table. You've got Amy Cooper. It's literally the woman in New York who called the cops on the black guy when she was like walking her dog or whatever, right? And then there's stuff we haven't got, but this is what I'm saying, gang. Like this is a real serious dilemma I've placed on your hands because I don't know, how do you pick which one of these issues of our lifetime narratives is her fucking 180 the most problematic? I don't know.
And that painted a picture in my mind and in the minds of many others that, there's no justification for the way that she was, panicking when she was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, right? But then you find out, based on what Camille Foster had found out and reported, was that like she didn't have good cell reception. So the person on the other end of that conversation couldn't hear her. She was panicking because she genuinely thought that she was at risk after, here's another thing that was omitted in a lot of the reports, after she was literally threatened by the bird watcher, right? Who said,
Right.
if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, and you're not going to like it. And then he proceeds to try to lure her dog to him. And listen, you might still feel
Like,
that
what?
her behavior
What are
was
you
uncalled for,
exactly?
whatever.
I was
That's up
thinking,
to
what
you.
are you talking
But you should know all
about?
those details. And I will say, from my personal opinion, if I'm alone at a park and some random guy tries to lure my dog away from me, I'm gonna freak out.
Actually, the accusation was that she
I
was being
just am.
abusive to the
And
dog. So why
with the
do
Rittenhouse
you guys really
story,
want to go there? You don't.
I was gonna cover the trial, and I just needed to go back and just like really, really look at all of the details and remember all the details. So when I do
here
the
we go.
story, I get the facts
And
right.
gang,
And
this is so problematic. This is one of the narratives. This is one of the stories, rather, that gave us the narrative of weaponizing people's identity, and that was a really important step in how we deal with a lot of these marginals. And definitely, as a black man, this is a thing that it's been happening to me my whole life, and you never knew how to speak to it, and it was very explicit. Like there would be times where people literally just treated you in a way that the message was, well, you're black, right? And if push comes to shove, you know how this is gonna go down, right? It's scary. And I remember saying after this that I didn't know how to talk about that. That I've been dealing with this my whole life, and I didn't, because I didn't. It's about having the language. Like, there's this thing, I love my dad. My dad's really into politics. He's also really, we're card buddies, and we talk. But one of the things I always loved about my dad was that he would understand that when I was going through something and I needed his help or advice, that a lot of times what I needed language to use to describe what I was feeling or what I needed or what was going on from my perspective. And he was like always really good about that. He'd be like, let me give you some language, right? And that's what that story did for me. Like, literally, I was like, holy shit, I did not know, because I didn't have the language of weaponizing my identity against me, right? I'm black, I'm bipolar, right? And when people know those two things about you, like you're a black bipolar man who's been arrested in the past, holy shit, right? Do they have the fucking ammunition to weaponize your identity against you, which I would never even be able to reveal on camera if it wasn't for the fact that I like now know that it's like not okay for people to use that shit against me for no reason. So for her to like go back and try to relitigate the incident that sort of allowed us to take step forward in our awareness of this. It's just again, it's another one of those, there's no way you don't know what you're doing right now. There's no way you, as a political commentator on the quote unquote left, because we now definitely need scare quotes every time we talk about the left and progressivism with TYT. But there's no way you don't know what you're doing right now, which is basically trying to tell people, oh, there was some details they left out of that story. So that whole thing about weaponizing the identity of black people, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's not really a thing. That's not really a thing. Really, she didn't have good cell phone reception. She was freaked out. And if you were in her situation, you would be freaked out too. Racism, this doesn't have anything to do with racism. This is just crazy. Like, I just don't even, and again, I just want to tell people, that's why I said she's literally blew my mind. She's literally taking not just some weird stance on trans people in sports. She's literally reinventing all of modern political history. From fucking Kyle Rittenhouse to Amy Cooper, all that shit. Go ahead, Bree.
And we also need to consider the fact that if Kyle Rittenhouse had been a black man, he wouldn't have been alive for his trial. So,
facts, 100%.
As I'm doing that, I come across a New York Times video, and this was a really, really well done video that they posted on YouTube that showed you in slow motion, like how everything transpired that night. Mm-hmm. And once you see it for yourself, it's really, really difficult to argue that in those moments, he was not acting in self-defense. And this is an area where, Jake and I disagree because, if someone's hitting you over the head with a skateboard,
I'm gonna see what I can work out for that.
How many black men have been gunned down because they thought they had a gun because somebody I thought he had a gun.
Person, and
this asshole's got a big gun.
Exactly.
And he didn't get shot down by the cops. Why?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
we all know about the black guy who gets shot 50 plus times because he was reaching for his wallet. It was a black object in the night. I couldn't see.
The black 13-year-old with a toy.
Down from a fight. So in his mind, someone
crazy too.
confronts you with a skateboard, he doesn't see it as a threat, but I do. And Rittenhouse is not a big burly guy who can like defend himself against someone who's like hitting him over the head with a skateboard as he's lying on his back. So once I saw all those details, first of all, I had to convey them to my audience and be honest about what the reality was. The other thing was, there was a lot of misreporting about how Kyle Rittenhouse was in possession of an illegal weapon and that he crossed state lines with that illegal weapon. Okay? Yep. So that was a lie. And it's not a lie that I just made up in my mind, right? That was how it was reported initially, which is why I would mention the state lines, but not because...
Again, gang, who the fuck in the Kyle Rittenhouse story of white boy going vigilante cares about the issue of whether or not he crossed state lines with that weapon?
Was that murder weapon legal?
Yeah, whether or not it was legal, whether or not he got it from a friend. The right are the only people in their defense of Kyle Rittenhouse who tried to bring up any of that shit. Nobody who was concerned for this underage kid going full vigilante on, people who did not deserve what he did to them and murdering them. Nobody ever brought that shit up. Nobody was like, oh yeah, because again, think about the implications of it. It would be saying, oh, you know what? We would have thought this was wrong, or no, we would have thought this was okay, but it turns out he traveled with the gun across state lines. So since he traveled with the gun across state lines, now we think you really ought to go after him. Oh, you know what? It would have been fine if this was just a gun that was locked up in his parents' house and he knew the combination and took it. But since he got it from a friend, again, nobody on our side brought up any of those details because nobody gave a shit because they weren't important.
Shootings, that stuff comes to mind, but
yes, but nobody talked about that with the Rittenhouse case. This was just technicalities in the fucking legal shit. So it's again so weird. but I guess not surprising that she goes to these right-wing talking points to literally reimagine the entire narrative around Kyle Rittenhouse. Like all of a sudden, if we could just clarify that he didn't bring it across state lines, like that would just make it all better.
Oh, how dare he cross state lines? Anyone in this country has the right to cross state lines. It was because it was reported that he was in possession of an illegal gun,
Right.
and he traveled across state lines with an illegal gun,
Exactly.
which is a serious charge. But it turned out that he did not travel across state lines with that
Yeah,
weapon.
he didn't do that. Yeah, the weapon
Right.
was in the area already. Yeah.
Exactly. He bought it from a friend when he was already in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
The night of that
He
event,
put himself
I mean,
in that
maybe a day
situation. It's
afterwards, Sitch
ridiculous.
and I were watching those videos online as they were breaking out. And I saw the reporting was basically wrong on CNN the night the viral videos were released. Don Lemon was saying,
Exactly.
you know, a white kid shoots into a crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters. And I'm like, what?
Yep.
That's insane. So they kind of poison the narrative from the get-go. And then everyone just kind of gets caught up in it.
Yeah, and that's how misinformation spreads. And that was a pivotal moment for me because, again, misinforming the audience is not something I have any interest in. And I might give them the facts and they might not like it, but I can't withhold information from them because I'm afraid that they might not like it. So I'm going to give them the facts. But, you know, I've learned to be better about, first of all, the sources I trust. I make an effort to just be cognizant of the filter bubbles we all exist in, the filter bubbles I exist in. And I've broken through that
Sorry,
bubble.
say that again, Bree.
Snake said something about her woke takes. I wonder what a woke take
Yeah,
is.
I just blocked Snake. I don't have time for this type of fucking nonsense.
A little bit to, you know, look at other sources that I typically wouldn't have looked at. And then the other thing that I do now is I just wait. You know, I think the story involving the so-called city bike Karen is a good example of that. The main show, because TYT consists of many different shows, right? The show that I'm the executive producer and host of is the main flagship show, the Young Turks. And prior to that story breaking, I had a meeting with my team and I was like, listen, I don't want you guys pitching stories about random individuals in the country who are caught in an out of context video allegedly behaving badly. I think these stories are divisive. I don't think we usually have the full details before we talk about these stories. And honestly, at the end of the day, engaging in these witch hunts is actually causing more division and hate in the country than anything else. So like, if there's a story that's particularly like jarring and you guys really do want to cover it, that's fine. But just understand that we are going to wait. Like, we are not in the business of breaking news. I don't give a shit about being the first in reporting the story or whatever. I want to make sure that when we do, we actually report it correctly and we don't have egg on our face later. Now, there are a bunch of other shows on the network that I have no say over, that I have no control over, who, you know, inaccurately reported on it and had to issue retractions. They had to take videos down and all that stuff. And I just think that was a teachable moment, hopefully a teachable moment for everyone in the company. But certainly, you know, this is an ongoing conversation I have with my team. And luckily, I don't know how I did it. I feel like I found unicorn producers because they're really smart, super open-minded. You know, they're less interested in this left versus right or partisan garbage.
They're all
And they're
jumping
more
ship.
interested in making sure that if we're going to report stories, we get it accurate. And so
This
we're
is
moving-
crazy. This is, first off, this is weird.
There's gaslighting here.
Yes,
which-
and having an issue of retraction about minor details in a story is not a big deal. But to act as though refusing to take a stance on important issues and now reinventing history over said minor details is just a completely bad faith take on all of this. Like, yes, people report things. Sometimes they get these details a little wrong. That happens in life. Even the most prolific scientific journals, who clearly are not rushing to decisions, even often have to issue retractions as part of the business. But to take that and then say, like, I told you so about Rittenhouse, and then to throw the other shows under the bus, like, this is a problem too, because again, for those of us listening, is that she doesn't care about people like us. That's pretty obvious. But I wish she realized there are people listening who like want to support those shows, right? And now she's throwing those shows under the bus, which is like, yeah, well, now I shouldn't watch those shows either. It's fucked up. Go ahead.
And just to be clear, to tighten, I think that yeah, and you want to argue that because the law or the state has these rules in place. I could give a fuck if the state says it was okay for him to shoot those people. I don't even think it's okay for him to have had that gun. I don't think it's okay for a civilian to possess firearms like that. I don't, and I stand against civilians owning any firearms that aren't used for hunting purposes. That's my position. So I'm very anti-gun. So you're going to have to, if you want to engage with me, you're going to have to not pretend like I have to stay inside the framework where we live in a society where the government is making the rule that I said that whether or not it's okay for some idiot 17-year-old kid to be carrying a high-power firearm into a riot zone. Because we're going to have a different opinion about what society should say and what position society should take. And Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I mean, I consider that answer too. This is just Snake Was Right's stock account, I guess.
Slowly but surely in a direction that I think is better, not just for the show, but I think better in terms of like what we add to society. Like the last thing I want to do is
right-wing trolls are boring.
Other side of right-wing disinformation, right? Like if we're going to be critical of disinformation we see happening in various videos and that are produced by other people, we should at least look inward a little bit and make sure that we're doing our due diligence.
Yeah, it's interesting you were saying how with the media, a lot of the misinformation comes from like they leave stuff out. And that's been my experience too. Just this intentional leaving out of key information, or they'll like the headline or the subsection will kind of frame something in a very specific way. So even when you get to like kind of the contradictory information, your mind is already like made up by that point, so it doesn't matter. And so it leads to this kind of effect where like once a person once that story hits that, like you or me or anyone, because I kind of went through the same experience where like once something hits me in a specific way, like it's like I'm free of the matrix. Suddenly I'm starting to see like things a little bit differently. All the dominoes kind of start to fall, and I say, oh wait, I start to see like where all the misinformation is coming from. Was the Rittenhouse thing like, was that like the key moment, or was there something else that kind of like made you shift your thinking?
Hey, Beck.
So that was one of the pivotal moments, but honestly, I would say everything for me started when I started getting gaslit on the crime wave. And it's really interesting to talk about these various political issues in the abstract, but then once you personally experience something and once you see something happening in the country with your own two eyes, and your political side is incessantly
he probably will, but we just don't invite bigots and Nazis to our cookout, and they can whine and cry about it all they want, but they should just get rid of their bad ideas.
Gaslighting you on
it's like you're a grown-ass man.
It makes you question, well, what else are you guys lying about? Or what else are you guys gaslighting about? And that's what happened. So, during the pandemic, there was absolutely a crime wave in the country, mostly in like major cities. Los Angeles happened to be one of them. And, I talked about how I, was assaulted. Well, actually, let me give you the details again, because there's an element to that story that I've never shared with anyone that also explains where my head's at now. So, as I was walking my dog one day, there were these two guys. They appeared to be homeless. They appeared to be on something. They looked like they might be methed out or something because they were kind of acting erratically. But, typically when I come across guys like that, if I ignore them, they won't do anything.
Right.
All right, gang, pay attention, because this is really why we're here. She's the gang. I'm telling you, this is a weird, fishy thing. I'm gonna do like Bree. I'm gonna light this real quick, airplane mode, y'all. Let's just pay attention to how she lays this story out.
Angeles happened to be one of them. And,
Let's get a little context.
during the pandemic,
all right, here we
there
go.
was absolutely a crime wave in the country,
Absolutely
mostly
a crime
in like major
wave
cities.
Again, absolutely a crime wave during the pandemic. I got to be honest with you. I still don't buy that narrative. I don't.
Just said urban. She said urban crime
Most people
wave,
were home. Yeah.
which was a Reagan era talking point about black crime in the city.
Yeah.
Urban crime wave.
Yeah.
It's the same narrative painted with a different brush.
Yeah, it's a weird narrative. Yeah.
Wait till she gets to the end of the story. The
Los
catch
Angeles
guys.
happened to be one of them. And, I talked about how I, was assaulted. Well, actually, let me give you the details again, because there's an element to that story that I've never shared with anyone that also explains where my head's at now. So, as I was walking my dog one day, there were these two guys. They appeared to be homeless. They appeared to be on something. They looked like they might be methed out or something because they were kind of acting erratically. But, typically when I come across guys like that, if I ignore them, they won't do anything.
Right.
That wasn't the case this time around. They're coming toward me, and my dog, Charlie, like, he does his business. And as I bend over to pick up his business, one of them grabs me by my hips and just, like, with an erection and everything, just starts, like, humping me, like,
Wow.
right there in, like, broad daylight. And
Right.
it was terrifying because, like, I didn't have any weapon with me, no taser, no pepper spray, nothing. And
Wow.
and luckily the guy, he did that, and then he and his friend walk away while they're, like, laughing at me. And I felt so degraded, scared. And, like, the first thing I did is I called my husband, and he came down, and he's like, "Where are they?" And he started looking for them. We couldn't find them. The cops wouldn't come. Like, we actually had an incident in front of our building, like, a few weeks prior to that. That was really scary. We called the police, and the police just wouldn't come. Like, it was amazing. And now, in retrospect, I realized the reason why is because there was a shortage. And I think that there was, like, an unofficial strike, considering what happened in 2020 and all the protests. So they just wouldn't show up. And I just didn't even think to call the cops because I'm like, what's the point? These
All right, hang on a sec. I need you to go back and listen to something.
them. The cops wouldn't come. Like, and
Wow.
and luckily the guy, he did that, and then he and his friend walk away while they're, like, laughing.
All right,
at
walks away laughing.
And I felt so degraded,
Feels terrible.
scared. And, like, the first thing I did is I called my
Calls
husband,
husband.
and he came down, and he's like, "Where are they?" And he started looking for them. We couldn't find them.
Husband starts looking.
The cops wouldn't come. Like, we actually had an incident in front of our
Says cops
building,
wouldn't come, and
like,
then
a
starts
few weeks
talking
prior
about
to
another
that. That
incident.
was
Right?
really-
The first bothered me. She does not describe at all. She says, first thing I did was call the cops. She then insinuates the cops wouldn't come without telling us that she actually called them.
Scary. We called the police, and the police just wouldn't come. Like, it was amazing. And now, in
Wow.
retrospect, I realized the reason why is because there was a shortage, and I think that there was, like, an unofficial strike.
I think there was an unofficial
considering what
strike.
happened in 2020 and all the protests. So they just wouldn't show up, and I just didn't even think to call the cops because I'm like, what's the point? These
Well,
guys.
she
have
said
already,
she didn't
like,
call the cops
left,
right there.
and they're not going
Boom.
to be able to find them.
Exactly, right?
But anyway-
Because if I'm putting this together, you're hearing, like, she says she called the cops when there was the other incident, right? And they just wouldn't come. And then goes back to this one and says, so I didn't even think to call the cops because the guys were already gone and they wouldn't come, right? Based on that other incident outside her place. But she does not describe as, who knows what that actually was. She doesn't describe that incident, right? Y'all, Bree, you're following that like me, right? Like, that's...
Yes, I'm there. I'm with you.
All right.
Wait, I opened up about that, and I also started opening up about, just what the statistics were indicating in regard to crime and how it's obviously having a negative impact on all communities, but mostly the communities that, like, BLM and leftists claim to care so much about, the disadvantaged communities. Crime on the metro system in LA has been unbelievable. And the majority of people who take the metro, who take buses and public transportation, they're usually, like, immigrant workers. They're usually, blue collar workers who, don't have enough money to buy a car, for instance. And so I was like, why are you guys cool with just having these people deal with this kind of violence? There was like a
All right, y'all can see where this is going. We'll pause it there. This is the shit that drives me crazy because she is clearly just feeding into a right-wing narrative. And this is so difficult because obviously I don't want to doubt anybody who claims they were a victim of a sexual assault. I have no reason or inclination to doubt that. What's a problem, though, is feeding into the narrative that is anti-police reform. And Anna knows that the police reform movement is not about, canceling or getting rid of the police. But this assertion that the police would not have responded to a white woman alleging a sexual assault in the middle of broad daylight in a public park, I find very hard to believe.
Almost as hard to believe as that a sexual assault would happen in that scenario of that nature.
I'm just saying, because again, maybe she's wrong. Maybe these weren't homeless people and they were just people that looked bummy to her, because that's what she's given us so far, right? Let's just call it what it is. She just looked at them, should look like bums to me, because homeless people who actually need or tend to be in certain places, certain parts of town, they're actually quite known if they're around there all the time. And so the last thing they want to be doing is committing crimes in broad daylight where people are going to recognize them, and their continued ability to just chill there and not be harassed themselves is going to be problematic. So it's a weird story, gang. I'm not gonna lie, it's a weird story, but it's a super weird thing to not call the police about. And then it's a even weirder thing to say that you didn't call the police, because again, Anna's got fucking dough. So Anna, where does Ana Kasparian live, gang, that police don't respond to white women saying they've been sexually assaulted in broad daylight? Where is this place?
They'd be out there checking for cameras. If she got a hold of the cops, they'd be like, where are the cameras pointed so we can see what happened?
I just don't get this, and it's really problematic because she's just used it to be like, oh well, it's like the jank saying, what did he? I'm trying to think of what the issue was. There was something he was corrected on, and he kept saying, I could see it happening. It's a thing I could see happening. And we're like, bro, that's not evidence. You're not telling us. She's doing the same tactic.
This is a claim.
She could see the cops. Right. She could see the cops ignoring her call because she feels there was an unofficial strike. Right.
I don't want to say that she wasn't assaulted. I have misgivings about maybe the demographic that she's saying was assaulting her. Because like you said, dude, I don't like to assume anybody's homeless or on drugs without any kind of evidence other than just giving them. I don't like making that kind of assessment about anybody by just visually clocking them, right? But I don't doubt that she was assaulted. I don't.
Sure, right.
But yeah, I don't agree with clocking them, and I don't agree with not calling the cops if that's something that happens. She has to, because her not calling the cops, I worry that gives these guys the impression that they can get away with that sort of thing. You have to follow through. I know it's humiliating and stuff, but it helps protect your sisters out there,
right?
That may fall victim to this.
Yes, so, yeah. and like that, I would 100% think you need to call the cops. And what I find problematic is her using the story in this way to say that she didn't even bother to call the cops because she knows they wouldn't have responded.
Yeah, she comes up with a narrative in her head that they're not going to respond, right?
When that feels incredibly unlikely to me in this scenario. And again, that's the part I don't believe. I just don't believe that they would not have responded, right? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think if she calls and she says, this is what just happened to me, again, it's in broad daylight in the parks. Presumably, there's maybe even witnesses there. And regardless, like, I think they're going to respond. That's all I'm saying. And
I agree.
And then to use that assumption that they wouldn't respond to that as a means to apparently undermine the narrative of police reform, which, let's be clear, is about increasing public safety, right? And again, like Anna, if there are homeless people where you live assaulting you in broad daylight, I would say we need some social services and things like that in this area, right? Because that's a thing people who are well-adjusted and chemically balanced don't do on a good day. So yeah, that's it. All right, gang, let's just roll it. That's why we're here.
Last year, where people were literally being set on fire randomly on buses, and that would get no attention, no news coverage, and it would infuriate me. And so when I opened up about what happened to me in my own neighborhood, what I thought was telling was how not everyone, but some people accuse me of pushing racist stereotypes. But I had never ever disclosed the race of these two individuals, ever.
Yeah.
But they just assumed that these two guys were black. They weren't black. They were two white guys. But like, I never shared that publicly because I didn't think the race really mattered, right? What actually happened mattered. And I thought the reaction to it by the people who were supposed to allegedly want dignity for everyone reacted to it. Like, that really bothered me. So that was the beginning of it. I would say that's what started me questioning everything and wanting to like look deeper into everything. And then other things happened. So the misrepresentation of what was happening to Asian Americans. So there would be all these videos of Asian Americans getting sucker punched or hit over the head with, whatever. And the main narrative on the left was—
Let me just cap off her story by saying that, again, I don't in any way say that she's misleading us about her assault, but to paint the homeless population of Los Angeles with this broad brush that they're out there sexually assaulting people and lighting people on fire because those are crimes that are happening in your area. Crimes are not always committed by the homeless population, like Jay was saying, and they're generally pretty well known and try to keep I try to keep a low profile, I guess, and they're known to the police, but to try to paint them, because she doesn't know. I mean, she even said they couldn't find the guy, so she never got any confirmation these were homeless people or what have you. And she's painting that population with this brush. I don't approve of that, but I still, again, if she was assaulted, she should have called the cops about it, no doubt. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and
I've been homeless myself, and I don't wish that upon anybody.
Right, and and to be honest, I was like nervous about doing the stream. I'm really glad you're here because I also don't want to come off anyway as like doubting her. I don't doubt her. I believe her story. I just think she's intelligent enough to understand. First off, I think she's intelligent enough to understand the dynamics in America, that if you think that the police are not going to respond to you claiming you've been sexually assaulted in broad daylight, that just... There are lots of times women don't report being sexually assaulted. And you know what? Fuck me. Like, you don't owe me an explanation, right, of why people make that choice. This is because it's a crazy situation, and also it's commonplace for a lot of situations that people find themselves in to not report crimes because you don't think the police can do anything about it. Either the people got away already, they're already gone, it's no longer an issue, the whatever. People get their scooters stolen every day and don't call the cops because they're like, somebody took my scooter. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I mean, I've had crimes happen to me and not reported it to the cops. That's a thing. But but the thing is that she's going on a show to explain her shift in political perspective, and part of what she's saying that is her apparent transformation in thinking about police reform or you know, the situation with the copification of America, and basically just saying, I didn't even bother to call the cops because I imagined in my head they might be on a strike as a response to the Black Lives Matter, and I don't even think they would have responded. Like, to me, that's like, whoa, that what, right? Because again, if she would have called, imagine the story. If you would have called and they would have said, no, we're not responding because Black Lives Matter, oh, you'd have the story of the fucking decade. And we know that for the most, police didn't go on strike because of Black Lives Matter. We know that they weren't really, their funding wasn't cut. I voted, I don't know, I live in a different state, but I just voted in Michigan. We just voted for more funding for police complexes, as did most states. Most of the police got more funding out of all of this, gang. Don't be twisted. Most police budgets grew. And on top of that, even if they cut the police forces marginally, do you think they would have got rid of the people who respond to sexual assaults in broad daylight? And again, gang, if they're not responding to white women's calls, who are they responding to? And if Ana Kasparian does not live in a fucking neighborhood that has good fucking response to police and public safety, what the fuck is the point of being rich? Don't these people live wherever they live because there's good schools, there's good public safety, there's low crime rate, on and on till the break of dawn? I'm not convinced Ana Kasparian lives somewhere where they don't respond to these things. And again, for her to live that is crazy. For her to share that on the internet is very brave of her. For her to use this story in a right-wing turn to undermine police reform narratives is problematic, because it's just like Jank saying, I imagine this or that could happen. You don't have, that is not proof. That's not, it's just feeding into the imagination. So I don't know. This was tough for me, gang.
But
this whole narrative is hard to parse.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The whole thing is hard to break apart and hard to address. That's what, because there's so many angles of that situation that she's describing to address. But I don't want to be to feel like I'm mischaracterizing my criticisms. Nobody deserves to be sexually assaulted, no matter where they are. I guess I'm not trying to reel it back in, just trying to give a clarification on that.
Sure. Beck, most of the time I talk about trans stuff without a trans person on the panel because it's a show I do myself, and so I just talk about what's important to me, and that issue is important to me because I shouldn't even say that. It's important to me, and also I think it's an important political and social issue of the day. And I also think in many ways it often ties in with religion, like because I think that's the source of most of those bigotries. So I think it's just a relevant topic to be talked about. And also I like myself content creators who talk about issues that don't necessarily directly affect them, because I think that's an important part of being progressive and being liberal. And so it kind of relates to your other comment. You said if you talked about racism topics without BIPOC on the panel, you'd be crucified. So he needs to have a trans person on the panel. In the background is folks don't know. I just disagree with that. Like, I wish people talked about racism more, and we're not always there. Like, you don't have to. I don't think you have to have a person of color on your show to talk about racism. I think that's ideal. It's like better. I think it's more important that you have people of color in your life that you talk with, and that you represent that perspective on, in your discussions. And if you can have people of color with you, then you should. But I think it's important that you not, because again, like we're a minority, right? So minority groups can't always be represented. That's numerically. And so we need, for instance, if you were to be at a work party or a social event and somebody say something foul with race, like I would want you to be able to speak up and you know, do clarification and set people straight. And I don't think you can do that unless you've practiced talking about the issue. So for me, I see all of it as practice. That's why I do it. I think I need to like work on it, and doing it on my show, doing it in my videos, doing it in my live streams, that gives me a chance to get feedback and to like understand if I'm correct or where I need to be fixed, and then hopefully, you know, help other people do the same. So that's just where I'm at. I'm sure that's not something everybody agrees with, but I just don't think that that's a reasonable standard. I've always been a person who thinks we should talk about and relate to issues that are we not. So for instance, like when I was a dating coach, I thought it was really important to be able to, you know, coach women. I was never going to be a woman, but I also didn't want to be able to deny somebody help because, oh, sorry, I don't have your lived experience, so I can't help you. And yeah, I don't know. That's just my take on it. Bree, I don't know if you have thoughts.
No, I'm ready to move on to the next topic because there's something she gets to here that I want to make sure we have time
Sure.
for.
I don't know if how much of this we're gonna watch, but is there something you think's coming up soon, or?
I don't know. I've only seen cuts of it. I think I mentioned earlier what the part I was talking about.
Yeah. I don't know how deep in it is, but we can play another few minutes, and then I think we're gonna watch it and gather. So we'll do that.
Yeah.
Individually, it usually involved like a repeat criminal or someone who's just been left on the streets with severe mental health issues, like people basically carrying out these acts of violence because they don't have their
me too,
head in the
Buck.
right
It's
place,
sad.
they need help, whatever it is. But like to just brush it off as, oh, it's just anti-Asian hate that's been inspired by the right wing, it just wasn't true.
Yeah.
And you know, I just thought it was wrong to frame it that way, when in reality there was a real issue with, you know, repeat offenders, and in some cases people with severe mental health issues, honestly randomly targeting all sorts of people. But you know, since a lot of this was happening in areas like San Francisco, where there's a sizable Asian population.
All right, let me stop this. Sorry, Steph, I didn't realize you were backstage. I just saw that, but yeah, let's go ahead. We can talk about the issues, and so yeah, because I don't know when she's gonna get to the part, but I guess to speak about Bree was talking about, because we'll look at it offline. Steph, I can't hear you for some reason.
For a very good reason. I'm muted.
Now I can hear you.
I was
best reason I've got.
Away, but yeah.
But yeah, she says something about basically that she's not white or something like that, or she doesn't see herself as white. Of course, there's other footage on TYT where she does self-identify as white. So, and yeah, that is part of that whole dynamic, right? Because whether she identifies as white or not, I think the rest of us do identify her as white, and it's hard to hear that sort of not aware of that. Go ahead.
She seems to be white passing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, yes, and she knows that. She knows this.
Of course, she
knows this.
You know, and you know, it's like. She's also, you know, she goes on about the terrible violence of the inner city. She lives in LA, probably a rather nice part of LA, right? I mean, really, you know, you're going
in the 90s, maybe. I think LA was famously violent in the 90s, but
yes,
that was.
Compton still sucks, but you know, we could be living in the Garden of effing Eden, and some right winger would basically be telling us that it's a hellhole. You know?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, yeah. It's weird, and I worry about crime too, right? I just moved, right, and I can tell you just from firecrackers going off, and like they were talked about. There's a guy down the street ranting and raving on his porch, and different things like that. When you move into a neighborhood and all these things are new, you don't know what the hell's going on. It's scary. Like, was that gunshots? Is that is that dude gonna? Does he think I'm a threat to him? He seems to be acting like it. So we're all worried about our safety, but it just and again, like, I don't. It did trigger me when I heard that story, because I identifying as I don't whatever. It doesn't matter how you identify. To me, it's just I didn't get that. I don't get this idea that it's not a thing we would have responded to. It also seems a bit weird that you follow up the Kyle Rittenhouse story with the, well, when it first happened to me, I called my husband and he tried to go vigilante and find the dudes. Like, is that the response? Like, and again, I don't want to judge you for making your natural response, but it's just weird. It's just weird. The point is, she's feeding into the right wing narrative on that, and it's just on top of all the other fucking stories.
She's also engaging in the right wing paranoid style of thought. I didn't call the police because I heard a story about someone who called the police and the police didn't do anything.
Right.
In other words, rather than do something that might actually prove to me that the right is actually correct, the police aren't shit, they won't protect the poor innocents out here because they're too busy or because of Black Lives Matter, or so this, that, and the other thing. So I won't call the police. You won't find out for yourself by calling the police and letting them tell you, sorry, white lady that just got sexually assaulted in the park. Black Lives Matter has us locked up in our police station, and we're short-staffed, and so does COVID-19. Call your husband and see if you can do some vigilante justice on your own. I mean,
yeah.
Come on, Anna.
And then the right wing picks that up and says, "Hey, even Ana Kasparian thinks that there's a massive crime wave." And
she's buying into that thought process. And she's already there. She doesn't have to jump. She doesn't have to jump at all. She's already there. It's like Cenk basically going, oh, I can bench press 250 pounds. That means any trans woman can bench press 250 pounds. Of course they're going to dominate women's sports. It's bad thinking, Cenk. It's not demonstrated. It's not true. What studies there are, I mean, Benny presented study after study, and I could too. I have them all indexed, et cetera, and so forth. These people won't be convinced because they've got their very own prejudices, and they are so stuck in the mud that they have adopted, okay, I've adopted this, the Young Turks, we're going to change American politics from the left. We're going to fight for progressive values, but we still hate the fags, don't particularly care for the trannies, and got some questions about black people.
Yeah, it's
sorry, mate. And you're just showing your whole ass.
Yes, your whole ass. Because, like, I cannot tell you. Like, I've watched me some TYT. We don't need to get into the TYT competition. We've all watched a fair amount of TYT, right? But y'all remember how explicitly they boast of being the liberal and progressive voice. And then she is sitting here looking straight into camera one, like, I don't know how I identify anymore. I'm not sure where I'd place myself on the spectrum. All I know is I've had a genuine reformation about my thinking about Kyle Rittenhouse, trans people in sports, police reformation. Like, it's just... Oh my goodness.
Does it sound like? Does it look like rebranding to you? I mean, the worst part. Okay, you want to destroy yourself? Do it on Twitter. It's the best way. All right. So, Tank goes on Twitter and says, you know, particularly his getting pushback about the trans women in sports issue, and somebody's giving him pushback, and he goes, "Oh, do you really want to, you know, the typical line? Oh, do you really want to destroy left-wing progressive politics by getting yourself hung up on this cultural issue? I mean, you know, you're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater." And who should chime in in an approving way? But Glinner, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
King. Glinner gets in there and says, "Oh, you're finally waking up to what we've known for a long, long time."
All right, Steph, you made me remember that there's actually more stuff we need to get to up in here. And it's perfect. Beck, no worries, because we're gonna get into there's some trans stuff in here, and we've got Bree and Steph here. So let's not me. Let's just. It's not. Oh,
but Glinner, of all people, Glinner, Jesse Single. Jesus Christ!
Yes, exactly. We're gonna get to the Jesse Single part. That's what we want to get to. Let's get to the Jesse Single part.
I just want to say I am Hive Psi on Threads. So.
Oh yeah, we got to get on Threads, gang. I got to make a new Threads account. I also just started using TikTok because I'm like the old man who's like
peer pressure.
Yeah, all that good stuff. But I just show up like boomer style, like when it's all done.
I'm on the Blue Sky. I'm on the Thrive. Stephanie.Helms on the Thrive, which I just signed up. Not Thrive, but whatever the fuck that thing is. It's what is it? Threads. Yes,
Threads. Yeah, I'm Pocket Locker 86 everywhere. Hopefully my Threads will be the same.
Well, I already had an Insta account that I haven't used.
Do you have Blue Sky tokens for us? For anybody?
I do not yet, but as soon as I do, I'll pass them out.
But for the real ones, Fet Life, Pocket Locker 86.
The narrative on the left became, oh, it's just anti-Asian hate that's been inspired by the right, and I just didn't really see much evidence of that. Then there was the attacks on straight news journalists who were doing their jobs. For instance, when Li Fang was reporting on the BLM protests, when he was accurately reporting on the BLM protests and some of the violence that took place during those protests. His own colleagues at The Intercept tried to paint him as a racist. I've known Li Fang for many, many years since I started working at
time to come in.
Oh yeah, let's
because it'd be great to have a trans man's opinion on this too.
Let's drop the good old invite link.
I would love to get Beck's opinions, the position of a trans man when it comes to the birthing person narrative, and yeah.
Yeah, Beck, feel free to pop in. I can pin it too.
Guy doesn't have a racist bone in his body. For them to paint him in that way, I thought was disgusting, and it had a chilling effect, right? The whole point is to intimidate journalists from doing accurate reporting on what's actually occurring on the ground. Then there was what happened to Jesse Singal, which I found disgusting. I didn't know about that
Jesse Singal.
At some point this year, I would say earlier this year.
With the trans stuff? Jesse's been on the show before. Yeah, he's done.
I'm sure he has.
Is a good faith.
That sounds right. That checks out.
Critical thinker.
Good faith, critical thinker.
He's a piece of shit.
I have listened to endless podcast episodes from Blocked and Reported. I haven't seen anything from Jesse Singal that communicates to me that he is a transphobe, that he is a bad person. He did straight news reporting on basically what
and lied his fucking ass off about
when it comes
trans families back in
literal
2017.
St. Louis blockers and then cross-sex hormones. And through his reporting, which I'm very sad to say I didn't really come across until this year, I learned that I was wrong about a bunch of other things.
Can I just say that kids and cross-sex hormones is that's a red flag that the person doesn't know what they're talking about?
Yeah. No, that 100%, because it's a paranoid talking point about bullshit. I just want to we'll have the discussion. Let me just share this one thing because I know a lot of us don't know who this is. Like I had no idea who this person is.
Well,
So,
apparently Ana Kasparian didn't know who the fuck he was until 2 months ago, and somebody obviously, the gendercrats have been feeding these people their bullshit garbage.
yeah. So here's a story I pulled up on this person, Jesse Singal. It's from Glad, and all right. So he wrote a cover story for the Atlantic. It was headlined "When Children Say They Are Trans, Hormone Surgery, the choices are fraught, and there are no easy answers." So he wrote this article. It was apparently very anti-trans, and then also he admitted to misrepresenting a study on trans kids' alleged desistance. He brought up the issue that trauma, particularly sexual trauma, can contribute to or exacerbate gender dysphoria in some patients, even though that's unsupported and has been decided that that is not how you treat that. And he amplified the unproven theory of social contagion. Some anecdotal evidence suggests that social forces can play a role in a young person's gender questioning. And he wrote a defense of Dr. Kenneth Zucker in articles.
Who was a fucking torturer?
Yes, Zucker's clinic was closed
This
after
is conversion
accusations
therapy.
of cisgender goals and curing children, and it was ruled to be what you guys said, torture and abuse, and unethical. It's not how you treat these people. So again, I just wanted to show, because that was me, right? In lieu of pulling people, you got to do your homework and figure out who this guy is. And Glad is a trusted resource to know about these issues. And I've actually also read the article, or I'd say like the first half of it, in preparing for this too. But yeah, it was. So he's a known transphobe, and I just wanted to show you guys that this is like well known, well documented, mainstream media. This isn't a secret, very public. So just grossly irresponsible. All right, go ahead, Steph and Bree, because that's it. I just wanted to pull that up.
When I
more to say.
When I decided that just it's really tangential to it, but it's relevant because it was 2018 when I decided to I'm going to start engaging on trans issues. For those of you who don't know, I transitioned 25 years ago, but in 2018 I finally said, okay, I really need to start speaking out on this because it's getting kind of fucked up. And Single wrote this article in the Atlantic, and he contributed to having things get fucked up. So I did this long Twitter thread explaining a story from the past, and at least 7 people in the comments to that thread said, I wish Jesse Singal would read this because he gets everything about trans people so wrong. And he believes quacks like Ray Blanchard, who came up with the notion of autogynephilia, which really shook up and fucked up the medical profession for a few years around 98, 99, 2000. And J. Michael Bailey, same kind of thing. Singal just brought all of that shit back into the public sphere when it had been discredited for a decade. And Jonathan Chait's doing the same thing. I don't know why they seem to both write for the Atlantic. I don't know. The Atlantic does some good stuff, but those two guys, holy shit.
Autogynephilia is this being attracted or turned on by the thought of having sex as a woman. To me, that's like saying, as opposed to what? What else? Like turn on having sex
compared to what exactly? I mean, it's completely stupid.
Yeah,
Polar bear. what does it even mean?
Yeah.
As myself is generally the thought, and as myself, I am a woman.
That's
For fuck's
kind of
sake.
the idea.
It's hard to hear too because all of this stuff is presented as some sort of progress in biology when it's exactly the opposite, right? It's just like they have to come up with some, and that really it sets back the public perception of the field for good reason.
The thing is that Single and Blanchard and Zucker, all of these people, they really think, honestly, they've written like Ray Blanchard. Oh no, I'm not against treating people with this condition, with my made up condition. I'm not against providing treatment, right? I'm not against transition. I'm not against trans people, but this is what it really is. And the problem is you're trapped in your own mindset. Rather than listening to the people that you're engaging with, you basically say, well, you're wrong about the way you feel about yourself. You're wrong. This is what's really going on. And it's just, that's not treatment. That's mental masturbation.
Yeah, absolutely. Steph, can you articulate, like, am I like misguided in this sense that you can like never really be comfortable with sort of a so-called progressive or allied, content creator or source like this? It's a real. There's a real sense that once you start paying attention to have you heard about the latest person who's turned on the trans issue, you realize it could be anybody any day.
Well, of course that's the case, but that's not. I don't think progressives are, people who label themselves progressive or fall into this basket of attributes as regards their outlook on cultural affairs, world affairs generally, and all of that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean they're going to get everything right. I mean,
sure.
The point is, nobody gets everything right. I don't get everything right. I mean, hell, that's nobody gets everything right. The problem is that I find most difficult are people that won't listen because of whatever reason. Like if in Cenk's case or Anna's case, they're caught up in their own sanctimony, or which I think is what's going on here, or they're finding, oh, well, we've run the left-wing gravy train is not as good as the right-wing gravy train, so we might as well might as well dip our bread into a little bit of that gravy and see what happens. I mean, I have conservative friends, politically conservative friends who are quite woke, as it were, when it comes to trans issues. And so it's not the issue. I keep saying it's not political. It is not a political issue.
Sure.
It is a human issue.
Sure,
we're not a political talking point. We're people.
We're being used as political toys.
Yeah.
You could say we're being used as a political talking point, as toys, by both sides. And for the problem the biggest problem I have right now in this instance is that the right doesn't care because the issue is working for them. The left wants to drop the issue. The left, a lot of people, like Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, put a tweet out yesterday or day before saying, well, we shouldn't be focusing on the cultural issues because we're alienating people who might vote for us. And it's like, well, Senator, name me a single issue that lies in the province of government that isn't at least, to some degree, anyway or another, some way or another, some degree, even totally, a cultural issue. What kind of culture are we building here? We used to talk about the Constitution as America's civic religion. We can't agree on anything else, but we can agree on the rule of law. We can agree on this point, that point, the other point in the Constitution. And that's what civil society is built on. We can all get around the idea of a Republican democracy. We can make that work, even if we have 15 million different versions of heaven and hell. We can set that aside, and when we're in the public sphere, we can deal with that and deal with each other socially, culturally, if you will.
Yeah.
But the problem I have with the left is that they are willing to let go and not fight for the independence of cultural issues, like people alone. I mean, conservatives used to be all about keep the government out of your bedroom, keep the government out of whatever. Against government bad. And not today, they want the government basically telling everybody how to worship, where to worship, when to worship, who is entitled to health care, who is not entitled to health care.
How to dress.
They want to make medical decisions for people, and it's like, and now, Senator Murphy, you're basically willing to say there's a category of people that, well, it's too problematic for us to deal with them because they're Orientals. Oh, no, that doesn't work. Black people. No, we can't do that because we had this whole thing and people get upset. Faggots. Oh, no, bad word. I said a bad word. Oh, no, can't say that one either. Oh, I know. Let's go for the trannies.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. You can't let, one of us in chains, one of us in chains, none of us are free. One of us in chains, none of us are free.
Yeah,
so
and that's why the issues are
let that dog,
Absolutely.
you let that dog out there and done.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Bree.
Oh, I just made a furry joke. I was just saying that they're coming after the furries now. I don't know if you all saw that on Fox News. That was pretty bizarre. Yeah, they tried to make it out to be some kind of kink. I mean, they try to make being trans out to be a kink too, and then they try to make being a furry out to be comparable to being trans. It's
it's the litter boxes in the schools,
Yes.
It's the litter boxes in the schools. I just can't with these people.
That's what she does with this bonus hole narrative here that she's presenting.
I just learned about that, because that's not a thing that I had ever heard of. But
bonus hole.
Steph, can you go ahead and tell people about that issue?
Sure. Well, I wish Beck were here, and it's like it's like within any marginalized community, and there's language that goes on. I mean, if you hang around trans women long enough, you're bound to run across the phrase "girl dick," and it's just kind of like a thing. And if you hang around the trans mass community enough, particularly in certain places, and this, by the way, came up in one clinic, a cancer screening clinic in England, in England, Turf Island, where the staff of the clinic, now mind you, this is a cancer screening clinic, and a fair number of the people that are their patients, are trans men. Now, when you think about cancer and you think about body parts, there's a certain body part, cervix, that trans men happen to have, although they're not men. And so how do you get to the cervix? Well, you have a bonus hole to go on. Take a look. So, so colloquially, it's like they had a discussion within that clinic. How do we make our trans men feel comfortable discussing the elements around either detection or treatment of cervical cancer? And they mentioned, well, they don't like some of them don't like, some of our patients don't like to be reminded of the stuff. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. So within this clinical framework, they're basically saying, okay, well, just, they call it a bonus hole. It's like, okay, that's fine. We'll call it a bonus hole. And everybody's happy. Well, some gender crit kook found out about this and lost their goddamn mind. And just like Dylan Mulvaney and one can of Bud Light set the whole world ablaze, now this one clinic in England using the word bonus hole to refer to vagina is suddenly, they're going to make all the women in the world refer to their vajayjay as a bonus hole. And it's like, no, they're not. That's not even the fucking point, you goddamn idiots. It's just to make one community more comfortable in accessing and successfully following through with healthcare that's of vital importance to their well-being.
And so it's very akin to birthing person in that regard, in terms of what it's actually used for and the ridiculousness of the fake outrage over it. Because
I think that we'll call that a Kasparian. Those kind of areas.
Yeah, it's
like the redefines, make a definition for Centaurum.
A Kasparian truth.
Yeah. But yeah, so for me, because I actually want to hang out and gather. It's Friday. Let's hang out, have some fun, and actually, I think we'll watch probably the rest of this interview because we've been talking a lot about it. So we'll dunk on Anna and gather, have some fun. But I do want to give you guys a chance to say anything you'd like. So I always conclude first, and then I turn over the panelists. So for me, I'll just say this is really disappointing because I was genuinely a big TYT fan, and I was, I've even had disagreements with people on this channel where I've been kind of happy for their success. Like, I'm happy to see a progressive channel with this kind of outreach, and I'm happy that there's something I could turn on, right? The same way you could listen to Fox News all day or you could watch MSNBC all day. I was happy that there was regular daily content from TYT and their whole diversity of rosters. And, I've gone through that journey of being disappointed in Anna, but assuming that they'll fix it and make it right, to having to realize that, to me, this issue demands more than that, because I feel like it would be ignoring the clear pain and issue, especially that their words have caused the trans community to continue to support them, right? Because when all this happened, that's what I was wondering. I was like, what is the response? What should you do? And to me, when you see Ben leave, you see other progressive commentators really kind of draw a firm line in the sand. My trans friends have let me know that they're not supporting TYT anymore. To me, that's what speaking with instead of for means. It says, it's like, them people tell you a line's been crossed, that means a line's been crossed. But I certainly understand from a social and political perspective that this is just wrong. This just represents a betrayal of what our actual principles should be. On the issue of trans and sports, again, to me, it's sports or games. Everybody plays sports. And it's also disappointing to see Anna doing a deep dive on rewriting and rewriting, the the last 5 or 6 years of political history. So that's my take on all of it. But I'll turn it over to Bree and Steph.
I'll go first if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind, because I'm sure Steph will have some better closing than I could offer. I just want to say, as far as TYT, I just, again, the last election cycles, the first time I started actually following them and keeping up with what was going on this last cycle, and it's been a great light in my life. Honestly, I've been dealing with personal stuff to hear positive narratives from the mainstream media, or the closest thing we have to the mainstream media on the left, for LGBTQ issues as well, and for them to go, LGB divorce or whatever. That makes me super sad, and I don't know how to take it, honestly. It almost, I want to think that it's like a monetary grift, but unless it's a long-term gain, because I imagine they're going to hemorrhage more followers. I've unfollowed, I don't know about everybody out there in the audience, but if the live chat is still following, I'm not going to fault you for it, because they were a big influence on my life too for a long time. But I just can't, as a member of the trans community, like I got to stand with Benny, what she said in her 10 15 minute address of the situation. I stand with her there, and I understand how the conversation went down, and I'm going to part ways with them as well. And everybody makes their own decision, but yeah. Steph?
Steph, I can't hear you.
Unmute. Yes,
There
there
you
is
go.
that. I haven't. I'll be honest. When Cenk first got going ages ago, I was like, when did he get going? It's like was it around it was probably, I think it was like around, I knew him in the bloggy days, and he'd show up in various blogs around. And then he started doing the more the classic boomer stuff. Yeah, right. Fuck you, YouTube. And he started doing more YouTube stuff and all of this, and it seemed like he was. I want to be a progressive centrist, and that's just not my flavor. It's not my flavor at all. You either go or you don't go. You're either on the bus or off the bus. I mean, come on, guy. It's like, so I've never really been influenced by those people. But his shtick is very appealing to people who just are scared by the dirty fucking hippies, and in that sense, yes, classic boomer stuff. So he was like, "Oh well, I'm not a dirty fucking hippie, and I'm young at the time. I'm young and hip, and all of this, and so you follow me, and everything's great." But I always thought that he was far too centrist for my taste, so I've never been a big fan. So it's no loss for me. But I've always been suspicious. And when you told me, "Oh yeah, the Young Turks, they're great," it's like, oh no, they're not. You wait.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
No, they're not. I'm just going to keep my yap shut, and you're going to find out that they're when push comes to shove.
Yeah,
they'll be the ones pushing and shoving, and the people they're pushing and shoving, you'll be surprised, because it ain't going to be the people on the right. It's going to be the people to their left.
Absolutely. And what that made me think of is just that we do deal with this in our community. That's the one thing that I don't know how much they deal with this on a day in, day out basis, but it feels like, in atheist or secular YouTube, this type of thinking. I'm progressive. I'm on the left. I'll use the right pronouns, but I'm willing to marginalize trans people over here. Like we deal with that shit, and I'm saying that, and I'm not. I can't imagine how much you and Bree deal with it.
Cough. Professor Dave.
Yes, that whole Professor Dave and Steven and it's a mess. But thank you guys so much for joining me, and I do hope that people in the audience now we can all see this issue a bit clearly when it comes up. We can understand what's at stake. But yeah, please do subscribe to Steph and Bree. There are links to both their channels in the description. So thank you guys so much for being here. Come join us and gather. We're gonna hang out, have some fun, and yeah, go ahead, Steph.
Hiveside Bree has a premiere at Cryptic Corner coming up in 15 minutes. So
well, shit, we'll be watching that. We'll check that out, and yeah, that's awesome. So glad. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you, and we'll see you next.